So you could imagine CLGP would be a little bit like the Champions League of football,
Yep.
and the America's Cup would be like the World Cup. So
Yep.
we do compete in CLGP. We won the event down in Sydney. We beat the Australians in the final, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, they didn't get the funding for the America's Cup. So the America's Cup, like funding-wise, down to 4 teams now. There's us, the Kiwis, the Americans, and the Italians.
Okay, but the Aussies didn't. That's amazing, really, because we love it. We love it because we won it one time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's still like that big memory of that.
Yeah, our CEO was on that team. So our CEO.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he was on the Australian team that won.
Ben earned his medals as a soldier within the British Army before he worked his way up the field in health and fitness as a manager in Southampton. His expertise has evolved from working in tennis, football, judo athletes, as well as working in rehabilitation before entering in the world of motorsports, where he provided performance coaching for Red Bull drivers across various Formula Series, including F1. This led Ben into his role he holds currently, which is the head of human performance at INEOS Team UK. His role is to prepare the sailors so they can maximize their potential on water during competition. Ben's hobbies include competing in endurance sport, where he competed in Marathon des Sables, Ironman triathlon, Race Across America, and Ben is also an avid skier and cyclist. And so what made you join the army at 16 and do what
just to get out?
I guess I joined the army for a few reasons. I joined the army because I thought I was going to be a professional footballer, and then at 15 somebody told me that I was never going to be a professional footballer. Like, every kid in the world who likes football plays for an academy if you're half decent, but when you're in the academy you think you're going to be a professional footballer, and then at 15 somebody tells you you either are or you aren't, or you're going to go to the next step or you're not. And I didn't go to the next step. So, and then I wasn't that academic. Like, I could pass exams and stuff like that, but I wasn't into it. It wasn't on my radar as something that was important. And both my granddads were in the military, and it was just kind of a good fit for me. I was in the wrong crowd. Probably doing quite a few things I probably shouldn't be doing, and it was a good way to not do that. And also, college wasn't really going to work for me. I certainly wasn't ready to begin some sort of academic endeavour. I wasn't ready maturity-wise.
Oh God, not at 16.
No.
Well, some people are,
anyway, but you went to war, or you joined the army at 16.
Some people are at 16,
Oh my gosh, no.
Some people have got the emotional intelligence and maturity to say, look, I really want to go to college, and at the end of college, I want to have these grades, which is going to get me to this university. And people do think like that, and I didn't. So, yeah, I joined the military at 16, and I had a really fun army career. It taught me a lot in terms of discipline, and it taught me a lot about me. Where I was going to base my strengths and weaknesses, and what I needed to work on to develop as an individual, and also what to rely on as an individual when it came down to, everybody does what they're good at. Generally, you always end up doing something you're good at, and you might not be the best, and you might not be the worst, but if that's your thing and you're engaged with it, as long as you can rely on your own self to be good where you're good and work on where you're not, I think that tells you a lot about whether you're right to do it or not. Like, if you can't identify the areas where you're strong and you're weak, you probably don't know enough about what you do. And soldiering allowed me to do that. It allowed me to work on the areas where I was strong, and work on the areas where I was weak.
So were you? Go.
It allowed me to rely on the areas where I was strong and work on the areas where I was weak. And I had a really fruitful career. I enjoyed myself. did operational tours with the army, and I also competed for the army in a couple of different sports, which I really enjoyed. And you got the freedom to develop as a young man. So I got the freedom to learn how to lead, be led, take responsibility. So all those things worked really well. And then I got to an age where I just started thinking differently. That journey of the military started to tell me, or I started to think differently about what I wanted for myself. And that happens for a few things. You know, you meet people from different walks of life, old, young, smart, not so smart. People are married, people are young and single, and you start to get a picture of where you want to be. And we all do it. You know, we all look at what we think we want our lives to look like, and we work which path we want to go down. And I knew I wanted to do something that was quite technical. You know, I knew that I had an affinity for health and fitness and physical development. I also know that I wasn't the best footballer, but I was fairly fit and I could get around the pitch a bit. I wasn't the best runner, but when I put cycling and swimming together, I wasn't a bad triathlete. So I knew that there was ways in sport where performance could be gained by looking at the global picture. And the more I started to think about that, the more I engaged with it. And that's what led me to, you know, leaving the military and then bouncing into a career where I wanted to work in performance. The caveat to that was I didn't have an undergraduate degree, and most people don't really want people in sporting organisations that haven't got an undergraduate degree. And also there's a stigma with the military where potentially you're not a coach, you just beat people. And that wasn't really the case. I was interested in performance, not in thrashing people, because I thought that's what made them fit. I knew that true performance lay in the detail. So I did the only thing you can do when nobody will take you on a job, which is I started to work as a personal trainer, and I leveraged that work into a club that had a junior tennis academy because it was sport. And that, you know, as a 24-year-old, to make a decision of where you're going to work based on where you're going to be in the future, all because it had a tennis academy, that tells me a lot about my thinking at the time, that I knew that this was really important to me. And that maturity from having responsibility and having the opportunity to lead and being led by good leaders had taken me into that world where I knew myself well enough to understand what I wanted and how I was going to get it. And then from there, I just started working at it, as you do. You know, I got myself through the door on free internships. I got myself a couple of mentors that would let me go and hang out and watch testing and take notes if they were doing big testing blocks. I was competing in triathlon, and I used to do massage therapy at all the triathlon races, which in itself was a good learning point, because you'll be surprised how many physiologists do triathlon, because it's a pure physiology sport, and you can sit and you can talk to them, and you can, you know, they want to talk to you about the technical elements of recovery, and I could talk to them about the technical elements of cycling, and, you know, or running or swimming. And then you're into a team, like a triathlon team, and you've got a coach, and that coach was really good at explaining to me why we did things from a physiology point of view, and then from an exercise metabolism standpoint as well, and how we fuel for optimum performance. So I started to learn, you know, I was doing massage therapy, I was working with lawn tennis kids at 6, 9 years. So I was learning about play, I was learning about long-term athletic development, and I was learning about maturation. Albeit I might not have called them those things, because the class was called speed, agility, and quickness. But when I look back on it, they're the things that I was learning. And then, you know, you're exposing yourself to as many people as you can. And then the job started to come in. You know, somebody would come in and they weren't part of the British judo setup. because they were a senior athlete and they were responsible for their own funding.
Yeah.
But they had a sponsor and they had some money, and I got a job working in judo. And that job allowed me, because they were as a coach as well, allowed me to go to where they were coaching, which once a month was at Bath. So again, I got to immerse myself in what was going on with British judo at Bath. Then some of the people they were coaching were on the British judo squad, and I got to immerse myself with those people and have a look at their programs, and even impact upon their programs. Say, well, you know, I do know that you come back from this niggle, and from a sports therapy point of view, these are the things I'll be looking at, and maybe I'd put in some eccentrics, or maybe I'd offload yourself in this area and change your condition into this. So looking at somebody else's program and being able to say, well, I know what injury you've got, so I'm treating you, and these are the things I'd put into it. And then for that feedback to come back from people at the IS and say, yeah, you know, they've told me to carry on doing that, that was really comforting that I was on the right lines. But it still wasn't working for the IS. It wasn't working for a major governing body. It wasn't working for a football team, because I still couldn't get a job at that level. And I can assure you I applied for a lot. And then the more you got, the better it got, you know. So I got to go on tour with, you know, one of the elder sibling of one of the kids I was working in tennis. We did a UK tour, and I got to go on that tour. Then somebody who was in their class who was in motorsport, I got to then started doing, I started to travel around the UK with a racing driver called Dean Stoneman, who I ended up working with for 6 years, and he went on to win Formula 2, racing podium in GP2, GP3, Renault 3.5, and then be part of the Red Bull setup. So, you know, I got a learning curve from almost long-term athletic development for racing drivers all the way through to him being an adult and racing at the highest level, sponsored by Red Bull. And then I got to immerse myself with all the practitioners that he was open to through Hintsa and things like that. So I guess I always say it's better to be lucky than good. But sometimes you got to work hard enough that luck will find you. And I think what I probably did is I understood my strengths and weaknesses well enough that I leveraged myself to put myself where the luck would find me. I wasn't going for EIS jobs, and I wasn't going for the S&C coach at Man City, but I was going at periphery sports like golf and tennis and motorsport and things like that. And I knew that, I guess deep down, I knew that potentially the recruitment policies weren't as stringent. And then all the time I was developing myself, like level 4 sports therapy, you know, strength conditioning, like I think it's like some sort of reps level 4 strength conditioning course. Then started to do things like CSCS and UK SCA modules and bits and pieces like that. So, you know, the development was there, and immersing myself with some really smart practitioners and strength and conditioning coaches, sports scientists who were willing to let me be there when they were doing what they do. So, and then that led to all the different jobs I had, and then coming out of working with Dean, I got an opportunity to, with my mentor at the time, he was doing Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, but he'd also accepted a job with Artemis Racing, and he couldn't do some of the strength and conditioning provision out in Abu Dhabi, so I got to go out and do that. So, you know, I guess I worked hard enough that I got lucky, and then, you know, that one sailing job when Pete Cunningham, my mentor at the time, when he got offered the job with Ben, or asked to apply for the job with Ben, he said he couldn't because he'd accepted the job with Artemis, but put my name forward, and then ended up on a list of people. And I actually got asked to work with the team while and I got to do like 5 months with them before they were ready to hire somebody. And by that point, I'd worked with all the team, I'd worked with Ben, and I guess I had an advantage on all the other applicants that I was already part of what they were doing, and they'd seen development in their athletic strategies, and their lads had seen development in their personal athletic development. So it's always easy if you can prove concepts rather than talk about it.
Yeah.
and I got the job here, and that was in 2014. And I've been with Ben ever since. With in the last cup, it was me and a young coach called Alex Hobson, who's now the lead at the EIS for British Sailing, and we had a couple of physios, and we worked with Aidan Goggins, a nutritionist. So we had a nice little team, and then Alex moved on to the EIS, and now we've got Ben Pink here, and we've got like 3 consultant physios, and got a consultant sports scientist who was one of our interns, who now does a lot of data analysis for us when we need it. So it's not like a really, we don't work in like your Premiership football type big performance team, but we've got a nice team. We've got people who are specialists in areas like shoulders or hips, our main touch points, and we've got people who can drive our program forward. And I guess I coordinate that now, which is cool.
Well, I think that sounds perfect. I think it sounds like a great job. And I've worked in the big performance environments, and I think yours sounds better. So I hope you, enjoy every bit of it. I love having a good team around me. It's just so motivating.
I think if you can develop a good team for the right reasons, I believe in like the Moneyball type team. I don't think you need rock stars all the time, but I think you need people. We get most of our injury. We do, I don't know, 4 to 6 million revolutions per person per year, depending on how much we sail. That's a lot of shoulder work. So we know we're going to, we know our big snag points are going to be shoulders. And one of our physios is Dominic Dentry, who's, he spent 20 years on and off working with British Gymnastics. He's really good at shoulders.
Yeah.
Another point is we spend a lot of time in a hinge, and we've got a lot of dinghy sailors who've got lumbar problems from hiking out over a boat. So, we've got Mark Bender, who worked with Andy Murray, and he's an absolute amazing practitioner, as is Dom. But with hips, and everybody knows about Andy Murray's hip problems, and Mark was part of that when he. I know Andy had some. I don't know the full story, but I know Andy had some injuries, and Mark was a real catalyst into driving a lot of his performance on the court, getting over those injuries, and then obviously it took its toll in the end. But when you've got people that are hanging around with shoulders and hips, and they're your main touch points, it's really easy to get over the niggles and the short-term injuries that pop up, because you've got some guys who've seen them. And I'd rather have guys coming in as consultant specialists to work on the areas that we need them, than somebody kicking around all day that isn't necessarily a specialist in one area. And we just started working with a girl called Nikki Stoddart. We worked with her a bit in Bermuda, and she's with us out here doing a little bit of work, and again got a really keen interest in shoulders, so that really helps on that front. We got a coach called Ben Pink. He did his degree with actually Chris Toombs at Cardiff and University of South Wales, and very, very strong in his strength conditioning stuff, really into his velocity-based training. And that works for me because I love the gym. I'm not a gym monkey. I'm not in there lifting weights all the time. It's like I'd rather be on a bike or running or something like that. So I really enjoy the applied physiology, and Ben really enjoys the applied strength conditioning. But to his credit, he's really turned his focus to the applied physiology. He's surrounded by it, and he's, now he will be the first in there doing the lactic numbers, making sure people are trained in the right zones, stuff like that. So, I knew that he was really keen on his research when we appointed him. But we appointed him because of his knowledge in strength conditioning and his affinity for strength development, which was what we need to prevent injury. But actually, through the interview process, he demonstrated a lot more qualities that have now come to the forefront. And, he doesn't need a lot of guidance. He's a really smart young practitioner, and, he needs to push in the right direction. And sometimes he needs help finding the right answer. but he's never far away on his own, you know. And just having good people around you makes it easy to coordinate. And I guess my job is over the last, since 2014, has become more and more about our sports medical coordination than it has about applied delivery, which I'm happy with, because, you know, I've done a lot of applied delivery over the years. I've had to, especially when you're working with athletes one-on-one, because you do everything. Like especially in motorsport and tennis, where you're not the nutritionist, but you've got the plan for the nutrition, and you are the sport therapist, and you are doing their gym sessions with them, and so I've done enough applied delivery to know where I'm strong and weak, and I really enjoy the applied physiology. But even that, I some days I can take a step back, because Ben is more than capable of delivering that, and I can concentrate on the overviews, making sure that the loading patterns are right for what we're trying to achieve, and the run into competition is planned as well as it can be, rather than us missing something because we're concentrating on today rather than 3 weeks' time. But yeah, creating good teams is really rewarding as a lead, and some days you feel guilty because they make my life really easy.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you've got to say, well, that was the whole point about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ben, in your PhD, you tackle physiology and psychology and how you develop your team in INEOS. But you spoke in the Pegasus conference led by Chris Toombs, and you mentioned you have a multidisciplinary approach because it's a fluid document that you have that entails every detail of your team. And it includes supporting evidence for your athletes because they crave that knowledge. But if you were to take everything away from that document and it would leave you with one key thing, what would that be and why?
Yourselves as a coaching team and your athletes as an individual before any of the science. The reason we wrote the document to be, what do we believe in? Because I can't coach something I don't believe in. Like, doesn't matter how strong the evidence is, if it's not right for the athlete, ethically, I'm just not interested. And if I don't know the athlete, like we talk about knowing our athlete and create, there's loads of books out there, conscious coaching and all these sort of things, and they're great. And we all talk about knowing your athletes, but how many people really know them? Like where they went to school, how they were educated, what they stand for, where they like to go on holiday, what football team they support. All these things are important because they all create an athlete's DNA. And if I don't know who I am and what I stand for, I don't know doesn't matter how well I know him, if I don't know who I am and what I stand for as a coach and what my philosophy is, then there's no way I'm going to be able to coach that person. So the reason we wrote it, the technical model, which is what I showed you, which is what I presented, the reason that it's about me first, or our team, then it's about them, then it's about the sport, is that because that's how important I think it is. And you could even take it further than that. What would Ben, our team principal is Ben. What would he take out of it? And I think the fact that he hired me to coordinate the team means that he believes in my philosophy of the way we should be doing things. And maybe somebody else will come in and maybe they're 2% fitter or 1.5% fitter or 4%. Let's say they're 10% fitter. But we've got a pretty fit team. Our availability is like 96% and has been since 2014. We very rarely drop below that. Something we're really proud of. And I think that's because we understand our athletes and we understand who we are. We don't try and change it. We're very consistent. So yeah, if I was going to take one thing out to answer your question, it'd be our knowledge of our team, our performance team, our training team.
I love that. And I agree.
Because I can Google physiology.
I was literally going to say that. You can find all the information in a textbook, right? Or you can go to lectures and you can learn this information. But what makes it different? What makes your team different? And to have the underlying philosophy that causes value and that has that ethos, I think that is like no other. Because everybody has their own principles, they have their own values, and they have their own commitments. But actually, to understand that and then to work the whole system around it, that's It's quite an empire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And look, it might not be right. And, you know, there's far better coaches than me out there that might look at our technical model and go, yeah, you've done a lot of research into the determinants of performance for grinding. And they might say that some of the detail in that is lost because we don't it works in our environment. My argument to that was come and spend some time in my environment and see if you can coach it, because in 6 years these people haven't been interested in that element. You know, so and it's not like it's one person. We've got a squad of 18, so you know there's a lot of people in there that and their values are all aligned to the same determinants of performance. So I don't think it's wrong, but who knows if it's right or not? I don't know.
I think having 96% availability over how many years now? I think you can probably tick the right box.
Yeah.
We're doing great. Yeah. So with a team squad, a team roster of 18, is that 18 people sailing each time, or how many?
So these boats are 11
yeah, crew.
11 on the vessel.
Yeah.
And then we've got our not reserves. We have a squad, and we anticipate them all to sail. You know, there'll be a few key people like Ben, our tactician Giles, wing trimmers and stuff like that. That they'll probably be pretty consistent. But you know, there's certainly no A and B teams in our squad. We'll rotate because we'll use people for their strengths when they're required.
That's what I was going to say. So do you go into a race with a definite strategy and choose your team around that strategy, that particular strategy?
Yeah, there's so many variables in yacht racing. It's actually a really interesting sport. You know, the wind, what it's doing, the way, you know, the sea state, tidal movement, and then those things have a cascading effect. What boards you use, what hydrofoils you use, whether you put heavy crew on, light crew, whether you have big sails, small sails, you know, how much power do you need for different types of maneuvers, who you're racing against, what type of tactics do they employ. So all of those things will determine your thought process and the way the race is going to pan out.
Yeah.
You know, our tactical team and our performance team will then say, this is where we think this race is going to happen.
Yep.
And this is how much power we think we'll need. And then we can then go to the real numbers and say, well, this is the team that's going to give you that power. Or they may say
this is manpower generated.
Yeah. Or they may say that power is not that important because actually you know, there's so many unknowns yet in the last 6 months. You know, it's completely different race, and there's parts. You know, we're going to launch a boat next week that we've never sailed before, but in 6 months' time we'll be racing it. In hard competition. So, you know, that's not a long time to develop something after a 4-year campaign. So it's super good from that standpoint.
Do you, like F1, pull the boat apart and reassemble it back in New Zealand or back in Australia or wherever you're going, or does it come over whole?
It's a bit like a helicopter. Like, you know, for every 2 hours sailing, there's probably 6 hours maintenance. So, like, our boat goes into the shed, and we've got an amazing group of engineers and shore technicians that crawl all over it like ants. And, you know, they don't go home till like 3 o'clock in the morning because they've got to have it ready for it to go out in the shed. You know, they're amazing, really. And we've got everything from sparkies to hydraulic engineers and software engineers. And, you know, I mean, we can't show people because it's our intellectual property. But one day somebody's going to pull the hood off this boat and have a look inside it, and they're going to go, wow.
Yeah.
Do those engineers travel with you then? Are they there on site?
Yeah, we've just moved to Auckland with 130 people.
Okay, wow.
And their families. Like, we've got a full time, like, we've built a base here, like a full scale base.
Yeah.
With gym, physio room, canteen, offices, boat shed.
So it's basically like a home away from home, right? You've got everything you need for the athletes, for the families, everything.
Everything. Yeah.
This is a well-funded sport.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And how long will you be in New Zealand for?
If you lose and you come last, you go home mid-February. If you win, you go home at the start of April. So hopefully I'll be home.
February, March, April.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have one final question before the ultimate question, but I wanted to ask actually, because you've matched up physiology and psychology in terms of your PhD, and you'd mentioned obviously the hybrid platform that you've created at INEOS, but going back to your endurance sport passion and you going through trying times in terms of sports, how have you come over mental resistance during competitions, and how does that enable you to coach athletes who go through the same resistance? Particularly being on the boat for such a long time, as you said, like they're sailing for quite a long time and they're having to overcome external variables like the wind and the sea and everything like that.
I think it's always people say you don't need to be an athlete to coach. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you need to have been through a sporting endeavour that challenged you, because if it's a bit like what I said, if you were going to leave one thing in the program, what would it be? Knowing your athlete and knowing yourself.
Yeah.
How can you really know an athlete? How can you really know them unless you've been through a bit what they've been through? You know, there are sayings in the world like, if you want to know me, walk a mile in my shoes.
Yeah.
Those sayings exist for a reason. Like they're not wrong. And I agree, some of the best coaches in the world don't need to have been the best players, but they probably still knew how to kick a football. Like Alex Ferguson wasn't a great football player, but he was a professional footballer. And yeah, I wasn't a sailor, but I know my way around a bike and a pair of running shoes, and you know, I've competed. I've pinned the number on. And I think those things. I think those things are important. Like I know what performance anxiety is because I've competed. I know what it means to get injured just before an event, having put so much into it and not be able to take part in that event because I've done it. I know what it means to be at heart rate level 6 when you don't want to be because your body's not responding the way you want it is. But, you know, so and I know what it's like to swing my leg over a bike thinking that I was going to have a really good ride and have a terrible one. So I understand the undulation of sport in my own little weekend warrior way. And the reason I entered some of those big events like Marathon des Sables and Race Across America wasn't because I was trying to be a professional athlete. It was because of my passion for sport, and I wanted to experience some of the hardest things that you could do in what I love, which is endurance sport. Now that's not sailing. However, I think my knowledge of all of those ups and downs and those failures allow me to be a better coach because I truly understand that this athlete in front of me, his hopes, fears, ambitions are all lay on the table in front of us. So you're injured. That's a massive thing for a professional athlete. You know, it's basically their living. It's like taking away somebody's computer if you're a software engineer.
Yeah.
How do you do it? You know, so, you know, they've all got their own. We talk about determinants of performance from a sports science point of view. There are hundreds and thousands of determinants of performance out there that exist for an individual, whether it be wearing odd colour socks or, you know, kissing your kid before you leave or you know, all of these things are determinants of performance for an individual.
Yeah.
And I just think if you can't put yourself in that position when it happens and that person's in front of you with their hopes and dreams and you're responsible for helping them achieve that, how can you possibly understand what they require from you at that given time? I'm sure somebody will argue me that you don't need to have done it to coach, but you know.
I think if people argue you don't need it for don't need to have that to coach, there's a flip side of things. It makes you a better coach if you do. So it's kind of like, it's always going to be an opinion, or it's not a fact, is it?
Yeah, it's always an opinion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't have to be a professional, but pin a number on, see what it feels like.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, go and enter something, and then tell me what you felt like at the end of the day. You know, did you worry about what you had for breakfast? You probably did, but yet we're telling this athlete to eat this thing. We never asked them if they like it or not.
No.
Maybe we should do. You know,
Yeah.
so these are all the things that I think are important. And a bit like what I said, you know, when we met at the performance forum, which was our model's based around convergence. Like, there's no point in having a technical model if we can't converge with our athlete and agree where we're going to agree.
Yeah.
On what's right for them. Because
I agree.
they're not going to do something they don't think is right for them, no matter how we frame it. And we can try and bring them round to our way of thinking, but not if it's all about compliance. They'll come round to our way of thinking if they converge with us, and that's way more powerful.
Absolutely.
It's like saying you can have the best program in the world, but if the person doesn't follow it, or it doesn't bring about those results, then it's not the best program in the world. You know, it depends who coaches that program and how to get the best out of the athlete or that person.
Yeah. And also trying to get the athlete to understand how they get the best out of themselves.
Yeah. Unlock their potential completely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of part of our job, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I get to ask the ultimate question, Ben, and it's something we always ask our guests right at the end. So what we want to know is there someone that you would be interested to hear from if you, giving you the opportunity to choose someone that we could talk to or should talk to. What would you like to know about? Or who do you think? Like Ben Pink? I don't know, one of the engineers? I don't know.
What if I was going to log into a podcast? Who would I want to hear from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would really like to hear from someone like Ben Saunders, like the mountaineer and adventurer.
I don't know him.
So yeah, I mean, my PhD is a crossover of physiology and psychology, and I like endeavours that require both. So I think talking to someone like Ben Saunders would be really interesting because he's an Arctic explorer. He's really into his cycling and running, and I've watched him speak a couple of times, and I follow him when he's doing his expeditions. But he's just a really smart guy. He understands performance. He's really good at putting a team around him when he needs to achieve something, and he knows what it's like to achieve and fail because he's done both. I think hearing from people that have both failed and achieved is really inspiring because it tells you two sides. It gives you both sides of the coin, and sometimes we don't always show that. You know, I'm certainly guilty of saying, yeah, we're at 96% availability and we have been for 5 years. What I don't tell you all the time is we have to work really hard at that, and we failed as well. And we've had people, you know, that 96% might only be one person out, but that one person out might have been out for longer than they should have been because we didn't catch it.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can science things good and bad. And my 96% tells you about my success, but not about our failures.
Yeah.
And maybe we're all guilty of not talking about our failures enough, whereas I've heard Ben talk about why he didn't achieve something. And that was as inspiring and as thought-provoking as why he did achieve what he achieved. So,
absolutely. All right. So do you know Ben?
Yeah, I do know him actually, yeah.
All right. So there's our 1 degree of separation done. But I like that. I think a mountaineer, someone who does that is truly inspiring / crazy, but man, you can learn from someone who puts themselves through that, right? And the idea that you said about building a team around you, that's a skill. That's good management, that's not good luck. So hearing how to do that would be great.
It's something I'm interested in. I've been very lucky that Ben has afforded me the responsibility to lead our performance program, and I take it quite seriously. I try to learn about leadership, and I try to learn about how you develop performance priorities, and I always turn to, we have a partnership with SIS, and James Morton is there, and he's helped me understand the way we plan out our performance priorities. And we do a lot of shoulder work, and in the early days, Mike Main, who is working in cricket, and
no, Michael, yeah,
he helped me with some of our understanding around shoulders. So I think on getting people around you that can help you drive your performance program forward is really interesting, and then leading that process is even more interesting. So somebody like Ben, who he has to start from scratch every time he does an expedition, and put that team around him based on what he wants to achieve. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. We can't wait to have him on.
Yeah, so have you written it down, Tos?
I have, yes.
Okay, good girl. Good girl. All right, well, I can't wait for Ben either.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben, for taking time out. Best of luck with the team, and
good luck. Yeah. No, all good. And since there's no Aussies in the race, it's pretty simple. Australians will go for New Zealand, so go Kiwis. We we used to say we'll take the Kiwis under our umbrella when, like, the Kiwis are allowed to be part of Australia when there's no Australian team. But now it's kind of like they've got the best Prime Minister and everything's working really like clockwork over there. And we're like, can we please be part of you? Can you let us in? Yeah. So now we want to be Kiwis. But yeah, good luck. Have fun. It's a beautiful place over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's my first day out, so it's good. I mean, it's rained all day, so.
I don't think Auckland's. Yeah, go. Sorry.
So it's like the UK.
Oh yeah, just like home. It is a little bit. European, but weather-wise. But and I don't think you're seeing the best of it in Auckland. But there'll be days when you can get out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I was thinking that we'll go for you because you're a New Zealander, but you're English, so I don't think Australians will be behind you. But I am.
Got a Welsh and an English person here.
Yeah. All right. Well, go Ben. There you go. We'll go for Ben. Since I don't know anyone else in it. Go,
all right. Well, thank you so much for taking time out, and yeah, good luck with everything, and we'll speak to you soon.
See you later. Take it easy.
Right. Bye.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Unapologetically You with Ben. And if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do subscribe and comment and tell us what you thought about the episode and what you learned from it. Also, give us some ideas of what you would like from future casts, from future guests. And if you would like to support us, because we are doing this off our own back, I would encourage you to visit our Patreon page. The details will be in the description below. And you have the ability to give us a contribution and help us keep putting out quality podcasts. So thank you again for listening, and stay in touch and keep in tune for our next podcast coming soon.